Okay, I welcome Robert Anthony Mack, tenor, to Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm Charlene Marchant. I serve on the Greensboro Opera Board of Trustees as co-vice president of the Education Committee, and I head our task force on social justice. I am delighted to be able to chat with Robert today. You will be singing the role of Sport and Life in Greensboro's upcoming production of George Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. And of course, the production has had to be postponed because of the pandemic. It's a tough time for everyone, and equally for those of us in the arts. So how are you doing? How's your family?
Well, my family is doing well, thank you. And I'm very happy to be here, to be interviewed by you, very happy to be here in Greensboro and having this opportunity, even though it's delayed, still being here to do what we're doing this evening is beneficial for the company, beneficial for the audience, and beneficial for myself. Because we artists, we miss performing, we miss being in front of an audience, we miss communicating. And those things are important to me because I feel those things. My family is doing well. Right now, I'm presently in Spartanburg, South Carolina, staying with my sister at her beautiful bed and breakfast called the Clevedale Inn. So I'm living nicely, but everyone is healthy.
That's right.
Which is very important. Everyone is healthy at this point, and we're just going along like everyone else, being protective, being smart, wearing our masks, sanitizing behind one another. It's strange when we're all in the kitchen and we're wiping behind one another, but it's so necessary.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear everyone's doing well.
Yes.
It's not all of us are. Okay, in addition to the pandemic, our country is also struggling with racial injustice and the nationwide protests against racial injustice as a result of the recent murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Rayshard Brooks, and that terrible list that can go on and on. Now, there are those that say, especially in the context of these current events, that Porgy and Bess, in its portrayal of African Americans, needs to be retired from the stage. Would you comment on that, please?
Sure. Let me go back just a little bit. It's been since 1619 that slaves were brought over here to America.
Right.
It wasn't until 1865 that slaves were free. That's 246 years. That's an oppression for many years. And then after that, you had all kinds of other suppression. Couldn't live in certain areas, couldn't bank at certain banks, couldn't go to certain schools, couldn't do what you want to do without someone having their, if you will, knee on your neck. That's something to deal with, to live with every day. And not many people outside of the African American race knows what that feels like. There have been other cultures that had to do with oppression and different things, but there's a difference, okay? So coming up to doing productions like Gone with the Wind, doing things like Porgy and Bess, and doing things like The Help. I had to bring that up because that question makes me think about Viola Davis, who now feels bad because she did The Help and she thinks she did her people, if you read the article, she thinks she did her people a disservice. But I look at it like this, and I'll look at Porgy and Bess the same way, and Gone with the Wind. These were opportunities that were part of history. Those cultures of the portrayals of some blacks, that is part of history. We cannot erase history. We should not repeat history in living that way, but to portray those roles in an opera, in a film, in a book, and then that tells the story of our past for the youth, for other cultures who may not even know about this past. Because trust me, there are a lot of people who are shocked by certain words, certain history, certain stories because they lived in another country. Not that they were being totally blind, but it's living in America and knowing these stories. It's important to get it across because they are heroes in that story. In The Help, the role that Viola Davis played, she's a hero. Why not show that? In Porgy and Bess, these opportunities that came up, this is the artistic side of it, there were many opportunities that were given to African American singers that were not there if it were not for Porgy and Bess and many other stories about African Americans or written by African Americans. I think they played an important role in the aspect that it gives opportunity, and it gives the opportunity to show change. We can't show change if we ignore the past. So I feel it's a good thing to have those roles, to create those opportunities. And then we can now, for me, doing Porgy and Bess, I gotta tell you, people said, oh, Robert, don't let Porgy and Bess be your first opera. This was from African Americans. And I understood what they were talking about, because maybe 20 years or 10 years before I came along, maybe it was stagnant. Maybe they only put you in those roles. However, that wasn't my experience. I got to travel all over the world doing more roles than Sport and Life. I got to do Madame Butterfly, Carmen, Die Todesstadt, so many other operas that had nothing to do with an African American. I got to play other roles, and they did not put me in whiteface or put me in some type of strange costume, my skin. They let me play that as an African American playing that character. So there's growth in that. And if we stop that, where's the growth?
Right.
But I can listen to those who have the issue with it, because if we don't listen, then we never get the other side of the story. So I'm willing to listen to those who are opposed to it.
Well, thank you. That was incredibly illuminating. Thank you for everyone. So piggybacking on that, do you feel that African American singers, though, do have some difficulties still in the opera world?
Not as before. I think it's more challenging for African Americans still. There are a lot of people who don't see us in roles. For years, what I was told, I can only go on what I was told. It wasn't my experience. But I did see that, especially for the leading tenor is supposed to be with the Caucasian woman. And there are many people, let's be real about it. This is the world we live in. There are many people who are not interested in seeing a black man with a white woman. We still have issues with that, with people marrying out of their race. And that's on both sides.
That's true.
So if we have that in the real world, trust me, we're going to have it in our businesses, in our social gatherings. It still exists.
Right.
It still exists.
A tenor singing Rodolfo is still not commonplace.
Yes,
a black tenor,
it's very far in between. Very far in between. I know few, but it's very far in between.
Well, do you feel that opera companies should or could do more to bring in a more diverse audience? Because opera, if you do the traditional European operas, then you don't, that's kind of hard to get your head around if you're trying to bring new people into the genre.
Sure. I think that's a broad question, because it starts really at the top. You need more artistic directors who are African American. You need more stage directors who are African American. You need more people on the board who are African American. It needs to be diverse, not just African Americans. You need Asians, you need Hispanics, you need all kinds of culture, because the world in which we live in is not just all Caucasian. It's not just all male. It's not just all black. It's a multicultural, multi-social, multi-age world in which we live in. And when people really get to that point and put their stuff, all that baggage that really weighs them down, they're not aware, but that's weight to carry that old baggage. When they put that to the side, then we can have a broader conversation. We can have a more diverse audience. We can have better productions, because when you do that, you're leaving out some of the great singers when you don't have them in there. Trust me.
I agree. You're preaching to a converted person here. Okay. You are also Robert Anthony Mack, the co-founder and general director of Opera Noir of New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very proud of that. In 2005, I started this company out of most things, as we know in the world, starts out of necessity, a need, a void. And me and my friends, Baron Coleman and Kenneth Overton, we started this company because there was a need to have more African Americans on the stage, out in the open discussing their issues. We had many issues that weren't being discussed. So we decided to come together, and we would meet every month and discuss our issues. Then we not only discussed our issue, we worked on our craft so that we could be ready when we do an audition. And it came out of another organization by African Americans. It was Opera Ebony.
Yes.
Opera Ebony, which had existed for many years, Ben Matthew and Wayne Saunders, they had given a master class, and all three of us was at that master class. And at the end of that master class, Ben Matthews, who's now deceased, a blessed man, he said to us, we said, "Oh, we so enjoyed this." And he said, "It's time for you guys to take the helm and run with it." And we didn't know if he meant to take over Opera Ebony or start our own thing. Long story short, we started our own company inside their home. That's how open and caring and loving these men were to us. And they let us have about 6 months of using their space, doing master classes and doing everything. And by the end of the year, Martina Arroyo, who we love dearly, said, "Why don't you guys put together what you've learned and do a concert?" We did a concert. What became a resource center now became a performing company. And that's how we started. And we've been going since 2005.
And you're still going strong.
Yes, we are. We've collaborated with other opera companies, Opera Carolina, New York City Opera. We went to Budapest and collaborated with their opera company. We've been to Canada. We've been all over. We've been to Russia. We go into the high school, colleges, and do all things like that.
Do you have any? Are you invited in, or do you have something upcoming that you're going to do that we could talk about? Or
not at the present time, but we're normally invited. We're normally invited by different companies.
Okay, that's good to know. And it's obviously important for it to still exist, Opera Noir, definitely.
There are some people some people who said their start came from Opera Noir. That only makes me feel proud. There's some people who have been who've been out of school for a while and had not performed on the stages yet. And their first experience was with Opera Noir of New York.
Right.
I mean, that lets me know it's not about me, it's about serving the community.
That opportunity to perform is so important. So important. Okay, now you have personal ties to Greensboro Opera. You know our wonderful Metropolitan singer, Elvira Green, who's a board member and native North Carolinian.
Yes.
Tell us, how did you meet Elvira?
I met Elvira, well, let me go back to when you're up and coming in the business, and if you just about any business you want to be in, you're going to research it. You're going to aspire to see who's out there doing it, what you're doing. So I knew Elvira before I met her personally, because I had followed all the African American singers who was doing opera when I was in school, because I wanted to know what they was doing, how they do it, meet them at some point in time. But it was years later after school when I met her through a good friend of mine, Roberta Laws.
Oh,
and you may know Roberta Laws.
I do.
And she introduced me to her. And really about maybe more than 5 years ago, they said, you should start teaching and come on out here to North Carolina. And I just wanted to keep performing. And now I'm out here teaching at North Carolina Central University in Durham.
Teaching there, okay.
Thanks to Elvira Green and Roberta Laws putting that seed in my head.
Wonderful. What are you teaching? What are you going
I'm
to teach?
teaching, I'm an adjunct professor of voice and teaching
Okay.
Italian, German, and French diction and
good.
classical voice studies.
Great.
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, well, now my next question was going to be, what makes you love singing? What keeps you doing this? And I know it's not don't think it's an easy lifestyle, the travel,
No. Well, I love to travel. Don't take that out of there.
Okay, take the travel out.
I have no spouse, no kids, no nothing.
Okay.
So I love it. But it's passion. It truly is passion, and it feeds my soul, and it's my way of expression. Some people write, some people do poetry, some people love, some people do many other different things. Mine is singing. I truly have loved it from childhood. I come from a family of singers. My mother had 9 sisters and 4 brothers who all sang and traveled around South Carolina and sang.
Right?
Yeah,
Oh,
my father
goodness.
sang. And so when they saw that I had the interest, they nourished me in it, which I thank God for it.
Okay.
And my mother had all kinds of music in the house: opera, jazz, gospel, R&B, and I just had
So
all of that
all that.
around me.
So is it the audience? Is it the love from the audience, or is it the physical act of singing? Or are they the same, equal?
I think they're different.
Okay.
It's the physical act of singing, because I really can feel that. I can feel when I'm singing. Don't matter, the music doesn't matter how high, low, or the dramatization of it. I can feel it when I sing, and it just pours into me. I then pour that out into the audience, and then it becomes not about me. It becomes
back.
about them receiving something that I have to give, that I have to say through a character, which is part of me and that character, but my interpretation of that character. And I always say this: some singers may agree, some singers may not, but we're a little neurotic to want to get on the stage and have somebody either say yay or nay to you every time you're on the stage. That's a neurosis.
You're right. I
But
think
we
that's,
love it. We love it.
because you hope for the yays.
Well,
That's what you hope for.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Okay. So, do you have any different upcoming roles that you were preparing before the pandemic, or still working on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was one of the operas I was doing was written by Mary Watkins, composed by Mary Watkins of California, and this important piece. It was the story of Emmett Till. It's called Emmett Till the Opera, and I was playing Emmett Till.
Oh my!
And I was so excited about it. We workshopped it a little bit, and we were getting ready to put on a full production, but of course, COVID knocked that down. And then I was doing a piece called Imoinda, and that got knocked down. Then I was doing another piece called Renegade, which is a fantastic 20-minute opera rap type piece, and it's about a runaway slave. He never becomes a slave because he keeps running until he finds freedom, hoping for freedom. And it's 15 minutes of me singing just with a small ensemble, and it's maddening, but so exciting.
Wow. Well,
It's so exciting.
I look forward to that. That
and
happening.
then of course, Porgy and Bess
Yes.
with Greensboro.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for talking with us today, Robert Anthony Mack,
Thank you.
tenor, and we look forward to seeing and hearing more from you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Bye.